It's Sergeant OQ on Hip Hop Nation. Dan Charnas hanging out with us. The big payback on bookstores right now. The history of the business of hip hop.
So yeah. Go buy the book, read the book, and divulge in it like we have. Take me through the, and I know it's one of the most fascinating stories in the book, the Jay-Z Dame Dash situation. The inception of Rockefeller Records to this guy, Jay-Z, this figure, I should say, this pop icon figure, Jay-Z, being one of the most powerful people in the culture by himself, and those people that started with him and started his record label being left behind.
Right.
Take me through that scenarios through your research.
Sure. Well, the first thing I have to say is why they're in the book. And the reason why they're in the book and some others aren't is that what Dame and Jay represented together was sovereignty. Meaning these were guys, and especially Dame. Dame was an entitled guy. He would tell you himself he was a spoiled kid. Who had anything that he wanted, and he had a great sense of entitlement, and he wanted to be a boss. He wanted to own his own company, and he wanted to own his destiny. And he didn't want to have to go begging to anybody. And that played a big role in the maturation of the hip hop business, because what Dame ends up doing with Jay, right, is creating his own empire. That's why they named it after the richest man in U.S. history, right? And what Dame said was, he followed the usual route of trying to get a record deal. And when that didn't work out for him, he said, you know what, I'm going to start my own record company. And he got into a bad situation. He made sure to get himself out of it and get himself into a better one and use leverage to get into a better deal. And he did the usual approach of going to a clothing company, trying to get a endorsement deal. And he got turned down by Iceberg Jeans. And he said, you know what? Fine. I'm going to start my own clothing company, and I'm going to put you out of business. And that's exactly what Rocawear did. It along with Fat Farm and Sean John, edged out these traditional mainstream American brands and became the mainstream traditional brands themselves.
Yeah.
And finally, the end of Dame's arc is when he starts his own line of vodka.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't want to hold Belvedere in his left and his right hand anymore in the videos.
Amidale,
Right. And then after that, he says, I'm going to buy this classic American brand, Pro-Keds, that Russell Simmons used to wear back in the 1970s when he was managing Curtis Blow. It comes around full circle. Dame is sort of a protege of Russell in a way, right? He licenses this brand from Stride Right. And what these deals represent at the apex of Dame, right, is that, listen, I am going to buy myself a seat at this table. I'm not going to ask for an endorsement deal. I'm going to create companies and buy companies that put me where any other mainstream white businessman would be. And one day I might even buy the table.
But what does the story of that's a great story, and what you just said it sound great.
Right.
But what was the ultimate lesson learned from the whole Rockefeller Dame Dash? Because there has to be a lesson learned when you got a guy that was probably him and his partners one of the most powerful people in the music business to being kicked out. Would you say attitude determines latitude, in the sense of, okay, you have this sovereignty, now you're in these environments, but guess what, you're not acting in a way that corporate the regular corporate structure expects you to act in these environments? Would you say that?
There are people who are very close to Jay who would say that Dame was a guy who would huff and puff and blow those doors down that Jay needed to get in. But once you're in the room, you have to stop huffing and puffing.
Right.
These people are your partners now. And Dame never really, lost his paranoia about that, nor his sense of entitlement.
Is that indicative of hip hop and guys coming from these environments, right? Coming from these street environments, because nobody teaches you. Some like football players and stuff. Nobody teaches you how to be a millionaire.
Right.
Nobody teaches you how to run a multi-million dollar company like that. And then when you have the swagger and attitude of hip hop, you know, do you somehow fall in line of the corporate structure's business model, or do you say, you know what, we're going to completely change the landscape, or is there a balance
I don't
that
think
Dame couldn't?
I don't think it has anything to do with socioeconomic background, meaning, you know, if you're from the suburbs, you're much